There was a new rabbi that was starting his congregation during a heat wave. And as he was starting the service, there was a member of the congregation, and he went up to the president and rather loudly said that it was too cold in the room if they could turn up the air conditioning. The president kindly nodded and took care of it. A couple of minutes later, the same member of the congregation went up to the president again, said, "It's actually too hot right now. Can you please turn down the air conditioning?" The president nodded, took care of it. The rest of the service continued. Every 5-10 minutes, the same person interrupting the prayers of the president. And after the service, this new rabbi went up to the president and said, "That was very impressive. How you really graciously spoke with this member of this congregation and took care of all their needs." And the president looked at the rabbi and said, "We don't even have an air conditioner." Now, I know, or I wish I could say that there was no bit of truth in that president's message. But I know that we don't serve congregations, presidents, or board of directors because of budget meetings and board meetings and policy meetings. But we do enlist to serve a community, to create a Jewish home and a Jewish future. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, of blessed memory, he lays out different qualities of leadership, and I want to choose 3 of them to talk about this morning. The first is responsibility. The second is to surround ourselves with leaders who wish to lead. And the third is to envision a Jewish future and then create it. And I want to share with you this morning how we see that every single day here with our Sinai Temple Board of Directors. And so the first, responsibility. Before you go home, and either before or after lunch, I want you to walk outside the sanctuary down the main hall to the Beverly Glen doors. And on your left, you're going to see the Hall of Presidents. For over a century, men and women decided to hold themselves accountable and responsible for the Jewish present and future. Some of those names you may know. In fact, many of those photos are real-life people sitting with us here today. Each of us are the beneficiaries of those photos. Each one of those presidents sought out responsibility, but each one of those presidents could not do it alone. 2, surrounding ourselves with people willing to lead. Let's go back in the Torah to about January when you read the 10 Commandments in Parshat Yitro. But a smaller part of Parshat Yitro that it often is not focused upon is when Yitro, who's Moses' father-in-law, tells Moses, "You can't do it by yourself. The people are going to complain to you about the air conditioning. There's things to do that you can't do yourself, that you need people around you to lead with you." And when I think of Yitro's story, I have the picture of our board of directors once a month on a Tuesday evening, Zoom, in person, hybrid, whatever it calls for. Because when I look around that table, or when we look around that table, you see people not only willing to lead, but desiring to lead with others. When you look around that table, you see the tapestry of the past, the present, and the future. When you look around that table, you see individuals who were born into the Sinai Temple tradition. They have never left this sanctuary for high holy days, sitting in the same seats that their parents and their grandparents sat in, that now their children and grandchildren one day will sit in. But you also see people who just, over these last few years, moved to Los Angeles with no Jewish family besides us. They decide to walk into a community and create. You see people representing our Sinai Temple Religious School, our Sinai Akiba Academy, our Sinai Temple Mental Health Center, Atid of our Young Professionals, our Douglas Family Preschool, our Social Action Center, and so many more people representing every micro community that you can imagine within these walls. And finally, 3. They don't come together just to eat and schmooze. But the board of directors comes together to envision what a Jewish future means, not temporarily, but to create a Jewish home eternally. For us, but as important, for the people that we haven't even met yet, that will one day walk through these doors. Rabbi Guzik and I and Rabbi Taff and Rabbi Wolpe and Cantor Feldman, we see this every single day. This past week was basically welcome back to Sinai, Akiba, welcome back to school. Every single day and night were different ceremonies and meetings telling everybody what the year will look like. A couple of nights ago on our twos and toddlers welcome back, I saw a young man who was about to enter the preschool or have his child enter the preschool. He himself went to this preschool. He saw the teacher that taught him that will now teach his child on Tuesday morning. Religious school orientation this past week under the direction of Daniel Casson. When I walked into the orientation, there was a younger crowd there, and I asked how they got here. I didn't recognize them because we did their B'nai Mitzvah just 8 years ago. And now they're on the other side of the table. What they felt, what they saw, what they learned in the classroom, they're ready to pay it forward, to become teachers and visionaries of the Jewish future ahead. This coming week on Wednesday, before we even could put out a flyer to our 5th and 6th grade families, our new Kadima lounge, our youth lounge, sold out, a waiting line, a desire to not only re-enter physical space, but a craving for gathering, for Jewish community, and our future. You know, when Rabbi Wolpe speaks to families entering Sinai for the first time, he says this every single year, and it becomes more relevant even today. He tells our families, you are not here to raise Jewish children, you are here to raise Jewish adults. We are here to raise Jewish adults. We picked this Shabbat because it was really the only time on the calendar that we could do this. But sometimes I tell our bar and bat mitzvah students, you know, I know you picked a bar mitzvah date 4 years ago, but sometimes your bar mitzvah parsha also picks you. I don't think it's a coincidence that our parsha this week is Shoftim v'Shotrim, that we are told that we should appoint judges and magistrates b'chol sha'arecha in every city and town and every synagogue. We should appoint leaders to lead a community. Because when we do, we have something to not only follow, but we have something to join. The Italian commentator Sforno, in fact, when we read this parsha, says, you know what, Moshe directed a lot of his attention to the people, but then he instructs the leaders for specific mitzvot because of responsibility. There's a little more there for them, not just to do, but to be held accountable for. And we learn plain and simple that with responsibility comes ability to shape what we want to have for tomorrow. It's no secret that our world has experienced a disruption that many of us in our own lives have never seen, and God willing, never will again. But we've also seen over these last few months a renewal of spiritual flourishing that we pray with our hard work ahead will continue to grow and grow. Martin Buber in the early 1900s addressed the Bar Kochva Association because they were going through the same things back then that we were going through today. How will we renew Judaism for the generation ahead? And when he was speaking to this audience, Buber explained that performing a Jewish ritual and reading Jewish literature and listening to Jewish music, it was important, but it wasn't the magic key. And so Buber told this crowd of leaders, he said, renewal comes through struggle, through study, and through building. For Buber, renewal comes when spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, when spirit enters our life. And he concluded that lecture, he says, I quote, "We can assemble the bricks now, but the house will only be built when we have become builders. We can have all the bricks that we want and all the tools, but we can only do the work when each one of us becomes a builder ourselves." And so to our Sinai Temple Board of Directors, as we are about to install you for the upcoming year, you are our builders. You have accepted responsibility. You have surrounded yourselves with leaders just like you. And now it's time to build. After Ein Keloheinu and before Aleinu is the prayer that we don't say out loud, but this morning I want you to read it. It's on page 204. In Hebrew it says, "V'chol banaich limudei Adonai v'rav shalom banaich." All of your children shall be taught by God, and your children shall increase shalom, shall increase peace. But the rabbis are never satisfied. And so they say, "Al tikra banaich ela bonaich." Don't say that all children are taught by God, but rather it's bonaich. It is builders that will increase shalom in our world. Sinai Temple Board, under the leadership of our president, Anna Tenenblatt, in a moment you will be installed. The bricks are here for us to assemble. And so today is the time to create tomorrow. Shabbat Shalom.